Hi guys, I'm joined by a very exciting guest. I have Graeme Hart, who's the former Dundee United Women's Manager. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. So the first question I've got is, when did the love of football start?
Um, oh, Probably when I was in the back garden at 3 years old and just kicking a ball about and then just joined a team. I think when I was 5, just my local boys club team, um, and then just ever since then, I've just been obsessed with it. Whether it's playing, watching it on the telly, trying to learn about the game, studying it, everything really. So yeah, since pretty much I was able to walk, it's probably been a massive part of my life.
When did you realise that you wanted to be a manager?
Um, Probably when I realised I wasn't good enough to make it as a career as a player. I started coaching when I was 16, and sort of I kind of had a feeling that I wasn't going to make it as a full time professional. And although I played juniors for many years, I love the game and I love learning and developing. So pretty much probably since I was 16, 17, then decided to go to university and study sport coaching. And just ever since then, I've really thrived on the coaching aspect, but also obviously the leading a team as well.
Mm-hmm. Have you got like a manager that you look up to, or even a footballer?
Yeah, I think obviously when I was growing up, the footballer I looked up to was Alan Shearer, but I think as a manager, probably Pep Guardiola is the one that from the early days, and more lately probably Emma Hayes. I've seen Emma live about 5 6 years ago doing a wee bit to help my own development as a sort of coach's development day sort of thing as well. So she's someone that I really admire, and obviously she's at the top level. But probably the early love of coaching started from Pep Guardiola, sort of changing the game, if you like, for the way it's played and the way it's taught.
Do you think you have any sort of similar kind of working mechanisms or anything that's similar?
Would like to try and think that I do, but obviously it's difficult. I think that's probably one that I think players that have worked with me would have to say. But I think the style and the way I try and play the game as a coach, we try and build and we try and play and try and make it as enjoyable as possible, which I think is the best way in terms of getting the ball down and creating opportunities that way. So I would like to think that I try and play football in the correct. Well, there's no correct style, if you like, but in terms of trying to get the ball down and pass the ball and make it as enjoyable as possible. But yeah, there's no right and wrong answer of how it should be played.
Obviously, you said you kind of looked into coaching and management after you realised you couldn't go fully pro. So what would you do if you weren't a manager?
Um, I don't actually know, to be honest. I probably would like to probably play golf a bit more and probably focus on something to do with golf. It's probably really good for. It helped me through my mental health and kind of just getting out and focusing on something like that, and kind of even when you're alone and you're playing golf, you can still kind of enjoy it. So something along the golfing lines would probably be something I would. I'm not very good at it, but then if I had more practice, hopefully I would be.
The next one is, how do you deal with the pressure of being a manager? Obviously, there's a lot of expectations either from the club, players, or even family with you need to be like this or this and this. How do you deal with it?
It's difficult. I probably for me, and that's why I kind of surrounded myself with staff that I could trust and staff that I know and I've kind of brought in that I could bounce ideas off, but also um, if there was times where the pressure was building or getting frustrated, then they sometimes got on the wrong end of it. But I know they could take it as well, and I knew that they knew I was pushing them for the right reasons, and sort of the pressure was kind of a collective as well, and we all won it together, and I had to build that so that pressure was just something that we all felt together rather than just as one person. So I think it's important that way, and we try and take as much pressure off the players as possible and put it onto the staff and the demands as well. So yeah, it is difficult, but I think if you share the load without obviously sharing it on your players, if you can share it with your staff throughout the staff, it can really help you. And the staff that I had in were brilliant in terms of putting up with me when I was under pressure or crab it or whatever it may have been. And I think that's important that you've got people next to you or near you that you can trust, that you can maybe have a wee rant at, that they're going to stand there and listen to you. And I think that's important when there is pressure, that you've got people that listen and take on board why the pressure's there, and also then calm you down as well.
So sort of similar is, obviously you said there's people there to speak to. How important do you think it is for staff within a football club or even the players to have somewhere that they can talk about how they're feeling and not just on what happens on the pitch?
It's absolutely massive, and this year we had the woman Brenda who came in as a chaplain this year, and what a difference she's made for the players' mental health. And when I say the players, she's obviously there for the staff as well. But having that sort of someone that they can go to and speak to, that's just a sounding board as well, really. And the difference in the players' kind of confidence, that they can just go and talk, and it might just be, how are you doing? It might just be a checking in. It might be how was work, but there might be something underlying that maybe we don't know about as well, that people that can support with that as well. So I think it's absolutely massive that the players in particular have got someone that they can go to, that they can trust.
Mm-hmm. So what is the dream club that you would love to manage and the dream stadium to manage at?
Probably Real Madrid would be the ultimate dream. It's probably the one growing up that I remember seeing the men's team playing at Hampden Park back in the early 2000s, and that's something that that was the kind of start of following like the big clubs, Real Madrid, and they're always the ones. But yeah, Real Madrid would probably be the one, I think, just because of their history more than anything from both sides. But I know on the female side, Barcelona are obviously flying at the moment and whatever. But from a club point of view, I think Real Madrid are an unbelievable club, and the Bernabeu is a stadium I've never been to, so to manage in that stadium would be quite good.
Mm-hmm. And the next one's the best football memory as a manager or just coaching staff.
It would have to be winning the league. I think as a memory, that's obviously that when we won SWPL too. But certainly from a personal point of view, that obviously lives up there. That was like an emotional weekend for myself, and we found out in the bus going down to Kilmarnock that day that we'd won the league. But that whole weekend is probably the most emotional I've ever been. I got the news on the Friday that I was free from cancer, having had that kind of scare. And then on the Sunday to win the league, it just kind of topped off the whole weekend, and it couldn't have probably been written any better. So my best memory from a football point of view would certainly be that whole weekend. Just added it from a personal point of view, and then obviously from a collective, I think probably lifting the actual trophy on Tannadice would be probably up there with it as well, for the girls to have that sort of environment round about them, and the way it happened as well, scoring the last minute winner that night to then go and lift the title was good as well.
What's like the positives of being a football manager?
I think for me the biggest reason I do it is to try and help and develop players and make them better. And I think when they're thankful for it, I think that's probably the biggest positive for me, when you can see players respond to what you're asking them to do and maybe actually learning from you. I think that's the biggest thing for me, is seeing a player actually take on board what you're saying or believe in what you say. I think that's the biggest positive, is actually having people that trust you and they're doing what you want them to do. And that's probably the biggest pro, is you've got a squad there that are relying on you to give them the right information, to then go and win them a game or make them a better football player. So I think that's probably the biggest pro, is you've got people that are are looking for you to help them. And then obviously if you can't help them, then it's amazing.
Yes, also going along that sort of line, do you agree that there's also negatives of being a football manager and it's not all so positive and it's not everything that you see on social media?
Absolutely. But I think that's with anything. Players are the same. It can be like as much as it's a team environment, it can be lonely as well. Where you doubt yourself, you're constantly doubting yourself. You're doubting before games, before training, after games, after training. You're doubting if you've done the right exercise at training, the right drill, if you picked the right team, if you picked the right formation. And this is all even before you've even played the game sometimes. Sometimes you've picked a team and you're still not sure if it's the right team. Sometimes you come away from a game thinking that was the wrong team. So there's a lot of negatives that can really, really challenge you mentally. And if you've not got the right people around about you, it can be a real lonely place at times as well, as much as that probably surprises a lot of people. But if you've not got the right people around about you supporting you and buying into what you're doing, you're kind of on your own at times, and it becomes challenging to kind of keep going at times.
Yeah. So how would you describe yourself as a coach?
I like to sort of be quite laid back in terms of like let the players enjoy it. I think first and foremost they've got to have a standard that they set, and if they drop below that standard, they have to be told. But I also think it's important that you make sure they enjoy it, because I think if they enjoy football, you're going to get better out of them than if they feel like it's an effort and every training session is going to be the same, or it's going to be repetitive and it's going to be a constant battle. So for me, the biggest thing is making sure that the players enjoy it, but also making sure that there's that line of having standards as well. So I quite like to have a kind of a good environment where people can enjoy it. They turn up, they feel comfortable, but also they know they need to push themselves. So it's just finding that fine line of standards and enjoyment.
Have you got any advice for young footballers wanting to make football into a career, or if it's even managing?
Yeah, just the biggest thing for me would just be dedicate yourself first and foremost, and listen to your family more than anything, and your coaches, because they're the ones that will look out for you. People that maybe when you're growing up say that your friend or your teammate or whatever, ultimately when you're growing up, everyone's got the same goal or the same agenda, where they want to make it themselves personally. So sometimes it can become quite selfish and maybe kind of try and kind of distract you from it. So just focus on your goals, focus on what you want to achieve. Your parents or your family members will know what's best for you. Your coaches, they'll want what's best for you. They might not always know, but they'll try their best to help you and support you and give you advice. So if you're looking to sort of get advice from people, probably don't get advice from the people that you think are your friends or the people you think are your teammates. Actually get it from people that have got a different objective or a different goal in mind. Whereas if you're in a team of 12 players who are all wanting to become professional footballers, leaning on them for advice probably isn't the best idea. You're probably better leaning on people that maybe are not going to achieve that goal, so they can give you proper advice or proper sounding board that there's no sort of ulterior motive. So focus, work hard, and then obviously if you're needing advice, take it from the right people.
So kind of similar is, what's the best advice you've ever been given?
It's funny because like people always think growing up best advice. My best advice actually came a day after I left Dundee United, so just in the last week. And it was someone that I respect very highly, and they were on the phone. They'd phoned me to obviously check in and make sure I was okay. And kind of, I was having a lot of doubts about myself. And the best bit of advice that they gave me was don't change. Don't change what you believe in. Don't change who you are. If you believe in something, then why would you change for someone that maybe believes in someone else or something else? So it's probably the most refreshing, the best bit of advice I got was probably a week ago to this day, where it was when you're doubting yourself and you're questioning yourself, the response that I got was, "You're doing well. Just don't change. Continue to be yourself, and there'll be a role somewhere, or a job somewhere, or a club somewhere that's your beliefs and your mannerisms that they'll appreciate that, and that's what they want." So that's probably quite a good question in terms of, because it's just lately, because everyone thinks best bit of advice growing up was what. Actually, I mean, I've just had my best bit of advice probably I've had my whole life is don't change.
Mm-hmm. So kind of obviously you touched on that your time at Dundee United came to an end after being there for 5 years and 2.5 years as a manager. How do you reflect on that?
Success, enjoyment is two of the words that kind of keep cropping up over the past sort of week. Is we've done really well, and we've built a real good foundation there of a good team, and even the staff we've got in there, they're all great and they're loyal, so everything's in place. We've improved year upon year. Results are better this year, more competitive, in a more competitive league where other teams' budgets were higher. So from going from SWPL2 to then 10th last season to be sitting in 9th just now, with all the challenges that we've had, I think success is probably the biggest word that keeps cropping up, and people keep telling me of how well we've done, and they keep saying, "Oh, how well a job I've done." It's not me; it's the players that do it, and it's the people around me that support it. It's not a case of, "Oh, I've just done the job myself." You can't do the job yourself. You need people surrounding you, and you need the players. And over the course of time, and the players have been great. Even the ones aren't at the club now. When they were at the club, they were absolutely fantastic. Some of them won the league. Some of them managed to keep us in the league last year, and everyone played their part, regardless of whether they're still at the club now or not. And I can't thank any of them enough. I've got them all to sort of thank for that time during it. So, success would be the biggest thing for me, and how far we came in that short space of time.
Mm-hmm. So sort of similar is obviously during the first year as a manager at Dundee United, you got promotion. How did it feel just to do it in the first year of you being a manager?
It was great, and to be fair, it was something that when I took the job, I wanted and demanded and kind of expected, because Gavin, who was here before, had left, probably similarly where I'm leaving just now, left the team and the club in a good place, and if we hadn't won promotion or we hadn't been challenging, it would have been disappointing. So yeah, it was my first full season as a head coach of that team. But the players that were there were all top players that were capable in the league, and it took a lot of hard work from them to go and do it. But they done it, and they done it really, really convincingly, which was pleasing as well. And it was probably something I didn't enjoy as much at the time. Looking back now, because as soon as we won the league, and then focusing on the following season right away, and the kind of wheel never stops, as they say. But it was it was enjoyable, but it was something that probably looking back we would like to savour a wee bit more now. But I suppose you can probably look at that when you're old and retired, and you can think back of the memories then.
Yeah. So obviously after the Women's Euros and the World Cup, there's been a rise of obviously fans and attendances. What do you think of the growth of the women's game?
I think it's been massive. I think there's still a bit of work to do from everyone right across the board, and there's certain clubs in particular that need to do more. I think there's other clubs that have embraced it and done really, really well. But as a whole, I mean, I'm thinking 5 years ago, and the standard from right across the board has just been dramatically increased. And now we've obviously got 5 full-time teams in the league here. But I think if you look down south and how much they've embraced it as well, I think that's something that we need to probably look at a wee bit ourselves. And I think we have, and I think you see it at the youth levels and the youth teams that are coming through, and some of the players that are coming through at youth levels that are 16, 17, 18, and the bigger clubs have obviously created that academy, and you're starting to probably see that a wee bit now. I think in the next 5 years you'll see even more with some of the players that are coming through at youth levels, and it takes time. But I think the growth's been massive. But I think I think the academies are starting to get in the right place and develop the players. And I think if you look at the ones at Rangers that came through last year, in terms of Kirsty McLean's and Emma Watson's and players like that, they're top players, and that conveyor belt should hopefully keep going. And you've got Celtic and Glasgow City who are now churning out consistent players. And I think if you look at Lisa Forrest, for example, at City, who's now playing regular, even your Tyree Birchells and stuff at Celtic, I think that's only the beginning. I think these young girls are only the beginning, and what these young players also do for the ones in the academy is they develop and they give these younger players now a go, or this is actually possible. It's not just a dream, it's now an actual reality where they can see that the players that have came through their own academies are now developing. And I think even a Hearts, for example, where you've got 3 or 4 girls there that are coming on against East Fife the other week, and it's just going to keep happening. So I think the growth of the game is massive in this country, and it needs to keep going the right way, and it has. And it's important that when you're on the crest of a wave, you keep going. You don't just sit and be happy with it. And the continued investment, the continued development, the sponsors coming in, the standard of the leagues.
Yeah. So kind of following from that, the last question is, what more do you think can be done to grow the game?
You've obviously got the young players that came on for Hearts the other week that are only 16, 17, and I think if you look at the Scotland under 17s that were just away there, and they obviously beat Sweden 3-2, and some of the players in that team are really, really promising. But I just think it's just going to get better and better. But people have got to be patient in terms of allowing these young players to come through, but also at the same time, yeah, be patient, but also continue to invest, continue the growth, continue to believe in what we're doing up here, because I think in Scotland we're probably our own worst enemy, where we always probably think of the negatives rather than the positives. And I think if you look at that group of players and you look at even below that and the older one, there's some unbelievable talent in this country. And I don't think over the last 5-10 years we would have got that many players coming through at the same time, if it wasn't for the growth of the teams and the academies that they've put in, and the infrastructure that these clubs have invested in. So I think it's really important that we continue to invest and believe in what we're doing. And yeah, it takes time, but at the same time, continue to push it and drive it.
So the last question I've had, you kind of answered a bit of it, is what more do you think can be done to grow the women's game?
I just think there needs to be more interest from clubs in particular. I think when you look down south, I think how much certain clubs down south, like an Arsenal, for example, do for the female side of things and the women's side, and the crowds that they're getting, because they're pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. It's always in your face, if you like. And for me, if you're going to grow it and you're going to get attendances up and you need to push it. You need to push it, and it needs to be consistent right across the board. And I think the league have been great with doing that, but I think clubs in particular need to drive it. And some of them do it. Some of them do it really well, but I think there needs to be just a more of a collective effort right across the board, and just putting out there and getting more people involved and actually making more of an effort about it. It does take time, but it's got to be consistent. There's no point in doing it for one game and then not doing it for the next. Consistently push it, consistently drive it, and the people will keep coming back, because the product up here is great, the standard's good, it's great to watch, but making people more aware of it first and foremost, and making more accessible. So kick-off times, game availability, where it's played, if it clashes, like these are all things that can help grow the game. Like if you've got the men's team, the women's team playing at the same time on the same day, it's just going to dwindle the crowds. You're not going to be able to grow it, and I think that was a big thing when we obviously played Hibs, and it moved a week earlier. We could have moved it days, but both teams agreed to it because Hibs men were playing Celtic that night, the night we were meant to be playing Hibs women at Hibs. So it was a no-brainer to move the game to try and then increase attendance and increase the crowd. And I think it worked. And you look at Hibs, for example, the club. They're an unbelievable club on the female side, and the support they get, and it's constant all the time. Because they keep pushing. So, that's the biggest thing I would say, is just continue to push and continue to drive it. And the results, the proof will be there in 5 years' time. Because I think if you look 5 years ago to where the game is now, I think you would probably say, yeah, the proof's there, the results, it's grown loads. But it can continue to grow and continue to strive.
Yeah, definitely. So that's all I've got, all the questions I've got. Thank you so much for joining me, and I wish you all the best for the next journey.
No bother, thank you very much.